Well, in our conversations with over 200 people, we identify some of the challenges that Fort Wayne has: jobs, our wage decline, and attracting and retaining our talent. And so 2 weeks ago we talked about attracting 1,000 entrepreneurs and my plan to attract 1,000 entrepreneurs back to Fort Wayne. Then we also talked about $100 million of new projects across the city, improve our quality of life, and help attract the entrepreneurs. And today we're going to talk about the idea of the mayor as chief marketing officer. And while the mayor is a CEO, I also believe the mayor has a role to play as chief marketing officer. And there will be hundreds, if not thousands, of meetings that will occur over the next 4 years. And I think the citizens of Fort Wayne will have a real opportunity to decide who they want through this election, who they want to be the person who represents them in those meetings. And so I just want to give a little bit of my vision for what I think a chief marketing officer would do in Fort Wayne. One of the things I think we need to do is focus on retaining and attracting business. I think one of the key things we also need to do is to aggressively market Fort Wayne to the world. And so we need to have an aggressive marketing plan and a plan that the mayor is fully engaged in to make sure that we're marketing our city. And then third, we need to define and promote a brand. I think it's very important for Fort Wayne, and I think we have a brand of being a great city to raise a family, but we also need to promote it as being a great place to start a business. And while I think we have that brand and reputation within our city and people who live here, we need to make sure that people are fully aware of that brand outside of the city. And I think it's also important as chief marketing officer to be fully engaged and working in partnership with our local economic development organizations. So those are the key things that I think that should be done by the mayor as chief marketing officer, and I think it's a key role that the mayor plays in attracting and retaining talent and also bringing new businesses and keeping the businesses that we have here. Are there any questions on this topic?
You talk a little about the last one in terms of how, I guess you wouldn't want to confuse businesses on who, I guess, the point person should be for looking at sites in the community. You know, should it be the alliance or the mayor? I mean, how would that relationship work?
Well, I think one of the things that you have to do with your LEDOs is make sure that you are partnering with them and that you're fulfilling the role that they need and want you to play. But you also have to understand that people are going to come and they're going to want to meet with the mayor, and they're going to want to understand the mayor's perspective of the city. And so I think that partnership is important. It has to be working together collaboratively to make sure that we're putting the best face forward of Fort Wayne possible.
Why do you think you would be successful in these discussions?
Well, I think my business experience and background allows me to understand the language of business. So when I get into these conversations with business owners and people that might move to this community, I have an advantage from my business background. And we've been a family that has started and grown a business in Northeast Indiana. And that gives me, I think, a unique perspective because I've not only watched that happen for most of my life, but also had the privilege of being involved and watching that business grow. And so I can explain to people why this is a great place to start and grow a business from direct experience. And I think that gives me a little bit of an advantage there.
I know you had a press conference last week about the light lease. How would you see some of that tying into this as well?
Well, I think one of the things that happens is the quality of life has a direct connection to attracting talent. So businesses follow talent, talent follows businesses. And if this is a place where they want to come live, where they see this as a city that's on the move, then talent wants to come here, and that then allows us to attract businesses who want to take advantage of that talent, and vice versa. So I think it directly ties, all these things tie together as part of the plan to move Fort Wayne's economy forward, start attracting jobs, increase our wage, and then attract and retain some of the talent that we know, and many people have said to me have left our city because their kids are leaving and not coming back. And I think we need to create a different environment for them.
Would you see some of the funds being set aside maybe for some of those purposes, and if so, what would those purposes be as far as attracting, helping to attract?
Well, when we talked about attracting 1,000 entrepreneurs, we talked about a different set of monies that would come from the private sector to create capital for them to have some angel fund investment. That's different than this,
right.
And that's different than the $100 million that's going to be used to do projects across our city that will increase our quality of life. This whole concept of chief marketing officer is more about branding and making sure that people understand who we are as a city, and it's also more about marketing and aggressively marketing on a global level. And then, of course, partnering with the LEDOs to make sure that we're getting that message out there to people.
What brand do you want the city to have, and what you say you want to define and promote it? What do you want that brand to be?
Yeah, well, I think the brand that we have internally of a great place to raise a family is a brand that we need to continue to expound. But I think the brand also needs to be that this is one of the most innovative, creative, growth-oriented, and job-friendly cities, and one of the best cities in America to start a business.
How do you think the city needs to improve on anything to get to that point?
Well, yeah, clearly, I think to do $100 million in new projects, those are examples of things that we need to improve. I think today's example of the Fort Wayne Trails is a good example of how we're trying to improve. We're trying to connect our city. We're trying to bring more people to be engaged in the city. Each of those things make a big difference.
The mayor has a big job as it is, and it almost seems like you're adding another component onto his job instead of hiring someone to do that for you. Do you see that as a problem when you get into office?
No, I think, look, we're going to be in meetings all the time with people who are looking to come here in different kinds of meetings. I think this is just a natural extension of what we'd be doing every day anyway. I think it really comes down to who do the people have the most comfort with the skill set of being able to put the best foot forward for Fort Wayne and attract and retain these businesses.
Are there any other existing organizations such as the Trails Group that you think this would fit in well with?
Well, those are just examples, and I'm sure there's others, but those are the ones we're going to focus on right now.
Eric, are there mayors out there who've done a good job as chief marketing officers you can think of?
Well, one of them is my friend John Costas, who I think has done a great job in Valparaiso of doing this. I think there's another one right now in Indianapolis, our mayor in Indianapolis, who has done a great job of being aggressive in marketing Indianapolis to Illinois. When you have a tax increase and they're now starting to, companies are starting to look at leaving there, and that he has put together some marketing in newspapers up there to try to attract the businesses to Indianapolis. These are the kind of things that mayors have done and can do that make a difference in terms of attracting and retaining talent.
Well, kind of to go back to the light lease question, because I remember sitting in a city council meeting, the Alliance was there, some of the economic players were there, some of the LEDOs, and they talked about how there were certain times when having a pool of funds to do different things at the spur of the moment would attract larger businesses. I guess the question is, would you see maybe setting aside some of the light lease money for a project like that or for uses like that?
Well, as I said, my plan was the $15 million to spur $100 million of new investment. I'm really interested in hearing what the committee has to say about the rest of it. So the Legacy Committee will come back and give the recommendations, and I think we ought to wait and give them an opportunity to see how the rest of that money could possibly be used.
Are we moving too quickly on this, do you think, to get a task force and have it all done in 5 or 6 months? Do you think we're moving too quickly?
Well, again, I think from my perspective, I hope the focus is exactly what they said in the paper, which is how are we going to invest, as opposed to thinking about how we're going to spend the money, how we're going to invest the money.